possibly a few, but we don't have the exact list. But he is also playing 4 copies of Show and Tell, which is notable here. He has 1 Emrakul, so that clash situation may come up. He's got 1 Kozilek and 1 Ulamog, so he is just all in on the Eldrazi. So
right, this is going to be largely a matchup where the 2 decks are going to be goldfishing each other. It's got to be a little rough for a 12-post deck. Remember, 12-post, any deck that's not playing counter magic oftentimes has trouble racing Show and Tell.
Yes, 0 counter magic here in Jeremiah's deck. I'm sorry, and he's just got 4 Repeal. And other than that, a Pithing Needle, and that is that's all the real interaction he has with his opponent's permanents. He's of course Emrakul, Kozilek, Ulamog. They can do some interacting of their own, but once those are in play, all bets are off anyway. So we're underway here, and Jeremiah has a Sensei's Divining Top, a Karakas, and an Island. Drew has just resolved a Ponder off of one of the other more attractive islands in the game. You see Jeremiah has the full art Zendikar island, Drew with the European Italian Venice, I believe, island.
So Jeremiah in the dark has kept a hand with a lot of repeals, a Divining Top, and actually no posts. It's going to be a little weak here because of the slow start. It really isn't what he wants against the Enter the Infinite deck. Remember, what Drew's goal in this game to do is just cast and enter the infinite. That's how he's going to win the game. So he needs to get a Dream Halls or an Omniscience into play. He can sneak in, he can Show and Tell them into play, or he can actually just cast them. He does play all the Soul Ring lands, your Ancient Tomb, your City of Traders, to make that happen. Actually, sorry, just plays the City of Traders. Doesn't actually play
no Ancient Tombs. So you're going to see a repeal from Jeremiah on his own Sensei's Divining Top. Apparently just wants to draw a card.
Well, yeah, the jig's a little up. He knows that Drew's is on a combo deck. He needs to get some sort of aggression going. Unfortunately for Jeremiah, it looks like he has failed to hit a 3rd land.
And he's going to go ahead and cast Sensei's Divining Top. And there's that land, one of the posts of the namesake of the deck, the 12 post. So he actually did hit his land drop, and we're going to see another Brainstorm from Drew. So Drew so far has pondered, brainstormed, and brainstormed. There you see Cloud Post. That's the original printing of it. You can see Jeremiah has a F&M version of it. It is a Locus, and Cloud Post comes into play tapped, as you can see. Adds a mana to your mana pool for each Locus in play. So right now, just 1.
So what this deck's trying to do is it plays Cloud Post, and it plays Vesuva on Cloud Post, which copies it to make a lot of mana and play really large colorless spells. It also uses Glimmer Post just because it is the only other Locus in the game, just to power up its Cloud Post.
So you get the 12 post out of the 4 Glimmer Post, 4 Cloud Post, and then 4 Vesuva. Those are the 12 posts that make the name of this deck. So a Ponder now from Drew. Drew all about the library manipulation. As you can see, a couple of preordains there in his hand.
Interestingly enough, Jeremiah is making a really heads-up play here. He knows that Drew's possibly on a Show and Tell deck, so he's decided to leave his Karakas untapped as opposed to leaving his Island untapped, even though he has a Brainstorm in hand.
So there you see Show and Tell. Jeremiah immediately chooses a Primeval Titan.
Show and Tell is a dangerous card to cast against 12 posts, as they usually do have an Eldrazi. This time he doesn't have an Eldrazi, he just has a Primeval Titan. It's one of the less scary
Just
threats.
a free Primeval Titan, that's all. And Primeval Titan, of course, enters the battlefield, finds 2 lands, and Drew is I think, basically...
He's going to cast Emrakul without paying its mana cost.
Yeah, he's like, hey, I'm going to cast this guy. He's just a 15/15. I'm going to get an extra turn. You can see the omniscience that, and after Jeremiah tutors up those lands, he sees that he's not going to be able to take this one.
Right, he does have the Karakas. Unfortunately, because of omniscience, Drew can just continually cast the Emrakul again and again and take more turns if Jeremiah decides to bounce it. There's no way he can not sacrifice 6 permanents, and without answers, Drew takes game 1.
Yeah, so, the Karakas, not the best answer when there's an Omniscience in play.
Well, it lost because Drew went Show and Tell into Omniscience into Emrakul. If Drew had just gone, that stopped him just going Show and Tell into Emrakul.
Exactly. The Omniscience was the key card there. Yeah, Karakas is a great way to deal with a Show and Tell Eldrazi or Emrakul. But in this particular situation, it doesn't hamper Drew any because of the Omniscience allowing him to cast it for free. Lets him just do it repeatedly, and he gets the extra turn off of it as well. Didn't come into play at that point. I mean, at least the fact that he had the extra turn.
So, interestingly enough, if you're not familiar with the deck list, Drew actually only plays 1 Emrakul, the Aeon's Torn, in the deck. Typically, his plan is to cast Enter the Infinite, but in that situation, casting Emrakul does work in a pinch.
So, Enter the Infinite, pretty new card, actually, and I think that's what really enables this combo deck to exist. We're going to show you that in just a moment. Omniscience already being a popular version of, or a popular way, popular card to show and tell into play. Enter the Infinite out of Gate Crash there is going to...
it draws your deck.
Right. So you can see it costs 1 billion mana and then another 8. Draw cards equal to the number of cards in your library, and then you put a card back. So he draws the whole deck, puts the Emrakul back, and now when he casts Release the Ants, which he is going to tutor for out with a Cunning Wish, and the Emrakul is the lone card left in his deck, and he's able to win every clash. We kind of went over that beforehand, but just so you guys can get a better look at it, that's essentially how the deck works. It's as you mentioned, essentially, he just wants to cast Enter the Infinite.
Right. Well, there's a bunch of different ways that he can win. Like I said, the one you talked about, Release Hands, is the go-to doing it. The question is, what pieces does Drew need when he combos off?
Right.
Obviously, he wants to cast and Enter the Infinite, but, you know, he only has 4 of those in his deck. He has 1 Emrakul, so you'd think, first of all, the deck might be a little fragile because he only has 5 cards. He does also have a backup plan. If he gets a Dreamhost or Omniscience in play, he can also Cunning Wish for a one of Intuitions in the sideboard, and then cast Intuition via Dreamhost or Omniscience to get 3 Enter the Infinites, and then for tutor for Enter the Infinite, and then continue from there.
Yeah, exactly. So he's got all kinds of routes he can take, some different detours to the destination if there's, you know, road work.
The other trick, the other trick is he can Cunning Wish if he needs to. He can Cunning Wish for Eladamri's Call and then find Emrakul.
Yeah, that's one you don't see very often. But yeah, Eladamri's Call,
uncastable in the deck.
Right.
So he does have to have.
Yes, you have the Omniscience in play there.
Right.
To be able to cast it for free, not have to pay the. It costs a green and a white, I believe.
Yes.
That's an older one. I want to say it's Invasion Block, Kev Walker artwork.
All right.
I'm not sure. Put up Eladamri's Call. We're gonna take a look.
So this is one of the cards that hasn't seen too much play. I mean, it's really just a cog in this combo deck. It's always fun when you play combo decks. You get to see lots of cards that really don't see too much play.
Invasion Block, Kev Walker artwork. I guess I remembered that accurately.
So it is, yeah, it is a 2-mana. Just searches for any creature card. This just searches for Emrakul. It's the only creature in the 75. And if he needs an Emrakul in his hand while comboing off with an Omniscience in play, it might be that he. So this would be used in a situation where he puts an Omniscience into play but doesn't have Enter the Infinite. And if so, sometimes in that situation he can Cunning Wish for like I said, he can Cunning Wish for Intuition to find Enter the Infinite. If some of the Enter the Infinites are gone or have been countered or made discarded, he can also, in this situation, then just Cunning Wish for Eladamri's Call to get Emrakul, to cast Emrakul. Remember, Emrakul, unlike there could be all the Enter the Infinites could be in the graveyard, but Emrakul will never find its way to the graveyard.
So Jeremiah on the play here, getting Gitaxian probed after playing a tropical island into a Sensei's Divining Top, and we're going to see Ulamog, Expedition Map, Glimmer Post, looks like a Polluted Delta, and an island there off of that Gitaxian probe from Drew. Drew draws his card.
So it's once again a little bit of a slow start from Jeremiah. He doesn't have the potential to make that much mana. He's gonna. And he opted for Divining Top instead of Expedition Map, which means he really won't be making unfair amounts of mana until about turn 4.
If he lives that long. Because,
if he lives that long.
You know.
He does have one thing, though, which I think why he plays top first, is there are a couple cards that really help in this matchup that he's boarded in. I think foremost, he has 3 Mind Break traps in the sideboard.
One of which he actually just drew. Just in time to get it out of Drew's Gitaxian probe range. So
it is a free counter spell, but Drew has to play 3 spells in 1 turn for that to work. There are some situations where that won't happen. If Drew's savvy, you know, he can make a play. He can, show and tell an Omniscience into play, cast Emrakul, go. That's only 2 spells. So it's not always going to be a free counter spell, but a lot of the time it will be.
So you see a Brainstorm from Drew, followed by a Preordain, and he is now drawn into Emrakul.
Yep, he's found that one of Emrakul again. So he can always show and tell it to play it into play, or Omniscience it into play, are the 2 ways he gets the Eldrazi down.
So a Brainstorm off the top for Jeremiah, after looking with his Sensei's Divining Top at the end of Drew's turn, and now he's actually going to cast that Brainstorm. He finds another Glimmer Post, another Mind Break Trap, and a Show and Tell.
So Jeremiah Rudolph actually also playing, it looks like also playing Show and Tell.
Yes,
a bold move in this matchup. Especially, Drew doesn't really want to blind Show and Tell in this matchup because there's always the danger that your opponent will put an Eldrazi into play as well, and the other guy gets to attack first. Jeremiah willing to plow head on into that possibility.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure that card was Mind Break Trap, but I'm thinking it was. It could have been, actually, I think it was Repeal. He's got one Mind Break Trap, one Repeal. That's what that is. Yep. I just saw the edge of it. So, Expedition map for Jeremiah, and he's going to pass back to Drew.
Right, so Drew has a fair number of lands. He has a Brainstorm here. We're going to see the Brainstorm fetch land. I think what he wants to do is he wants to reload with a lot of good counter magic or a lot of good disruption here. He doesn't really, he has to worry what he's playing around. He's obviously going to be playing around a Mind Break Trap if he knows that it gets played out of 12 post. There also are 4 Force of Wills in Jeremiah's board. You'd think all those are coming in as well. And the third thing he's playing around is the fact that he can't just show and tell. He probably needs to go for the full combo.
Yeah, because as you mentioned, the show and tell will give Jeremiah the possible opportunity to put an Eldrazi of his own into play, which could be bad news. Looks like a fetch land for Jeremiah. End of Drew's turn. Drew with the full 12 Brainstorm, Ponder, Preordain in his deck alongside those 2 Gitaxian Probes. We've seen all but the Ponders so far.
Right, and between decks like High Tide and now Enter the Infinite, that's one of the strengths of these decks, is that with all this basic land, they're wasteland proof, they get to play a full 12, and then Gitaxian Probe is something even 14 when they're 0 mana cantrips. They're brutally efficient at finding their pieces and then finding some Pact of Negations.
Yeah. So Sensei's Divining Top is going to spin here, show Jeremiah top 3. He reorders them, and now he's going to go ahead and draw his card for the turn, which is a Force of Will.
So Jeremiah, instead of trying to race an Eldrazi into play, interestingly enough, he's trying to play the counter spell game. And I would say from the amount of time I've spent playing with High Tide, it's a dangerous game to play against a blue deck. When they have this much card selection, so what Drew needs to do is first he's going to find his combo pieces. Once he has his combo piece, he's going to gauge how long he has before the game will force him to go for it. Right. And basically with every turn you give Drew, he can probably find another offensive counterspell. If you give Drew until turn 8, his hand will be something along the lines of what I would say is his hand would look like Show and Tell, Omniscience, Cunning Wish, Flusterstorm, Pact of Negation. And he's like, that'd be a
tough hand to beat.
A tough hand to beat because, it has the full combo and it has 4 offensive counterspells. If Drew gets enough time, he'll assemble something as unbeatable as that.
So in the meantime, Jeremiah with land go, Drew with land go, and then Jeremiah spins the top, finds nothing he really wants, so he's going to crack that Expedition map now and find a Flooded Strand, which is a strange choice. Usually those maps are searching up posts. And in this particular situation, Jeremiah actually doesn't have very many posts, so you'd think even more reason for him to go for it, but he wants the fetch land. I guess in concert with that Divining Top, being able to shuffle things away is a nice option to have. So he's going to spin top on his upkeep, I think. He spun top again at the end of Drew's turn, after the Expedition map. And now for his turn, he plays a Cloud Post and passes.
So what Drew's gauging is when he thinks Jeremiah can make an Emrakul. All the other Eldrazi Drew really doesn't have to worry about because then he can untap and combo, but the Emrakul is the one that will get him. So when he starts thinking, when Jeremiah becomes 1 land drop away from Emrakul, that's going to be when Drew goes for it.
So, Drew with 4 islands in play after cracking a Scalding Tarn draws a white bordered Brainstorm, and he's going to cast it.
Alright, we see Cunning Wish drawn.
I believe it was double Cunning Wish.
The second one, not usually good in these kinds of decks, unless, if Drew's actually just setting up over and over, then that Cunning Wish can turn into a Pact of Negation.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what that middle card was, because I thought it was Cunning Wish something and then Cunning Wish. It looked kind of like Misdirection, but I don't see that in the list, so it must be something else. I'm not getting a very good look at it, so.
Well, soon enough, remember, Drew is just sculpting his hand even more. He does have, he's going to play City of Traders. That suggests that he's going for it this turn, or maybe next turn at the very best.
He's going to cast something here. Oh, his Dream Halls may have been that. No, it still wasn't that middle card. You still can't see it, but Dream Halls is the play.
Right, and this, remember, one of the ways that Drew casts Enter the Infinite is with Dream Halls. This is going to start the counter war.
Yeah, we're going to show you guys Dream Halls. This is an old one from way back in Stronghold, I believe. and it allows Drew to remove a blue card. Well, to cast a spell, you remove a card in your hand that shares a color with it.
Yeah, a way you might think of it is it lets you Force of Will all your cards into play.
Yeah, yeah.
You know how Force of Will has that extra blue card cost to it? Yeah, all your cards you can cast via the Force of Will method.
Right. Instead of paying the casting cost, you just discard a card that shares at least one color with it. You don't lose the one life either. So.
Right, so you can actually play a lot of spells this way as long as you have enough cards to discard. Now, if Drew gets to cast the Enter the Infinite, he'll quickly upgrade this Dream Halls into an Omniscience.
So, as you mentioned, the counter war underway now. Force of Will on the Dream Halls, Pact of Negation on the Force of Will, and you see the card removed, I believe, was the Show and Tell. Does that look like Show and Tell to you up at the top?
Yep, the top row is Show and Tell. Something Jeremiah really doesn't want to cast in this matchup. And here's where it's going to show just how hard it is to fight a counter war against the mono blue combo deck. Jeremiah already struggling to stop these spells from resolving, and Drew really hasn't even begun to fight on this one.
Right, now we know there's a Mindbreak trap as well in Jeremiah's hand, but I think he wants to save that at this point. So he's going to go ahead and repeal his own Sensei's Divining Top to draw a card.
Yeah, Jeremiah could have hard cast the Mindbreak trap there, because Drew's only cast 2 spells this turn. It's not yet, you have to cast 3 spells for Mindbreak trap to hit.
Did he not cast that Brainstorm this turn? So it was Brainstorm.
Oh, so the Brainstorm was a turn. Okay, so Mindbreak trap, you're absolutely
it's
right.
live.
Mindbreak trap is live.
Mindbreak trap. There you go. Out of Zendikar. If your opponent casts 3 or more spells this turn, you may pay 0.
So a little different than counting Storm. You're counting like one-sided Storm.
Right. He can only count Drew's spells, so his spells do not count towards that Mindbreak trap free clause there.
Now, what's of note is that Mindbreak trap counters everything.
Right. It exiles. So in fact, it could exile a Supreme Verdict or an Abrupt Decay.
So what he'll exile here is he'll exile the Pact of Negation and the Dream Halls.
Or he may not want to exile the Pact.
He wants Drew to pay for it.
he wants Drew to pay for it. So he's going to exile his own Force of Will, I think. What is just any number, so he can choose whatever he wants. But I think what he did there is let the Pact of Negation, quote-unquote, resolve.
Right.
But either way, it keeps the Dream Halls off the table and very likely forces Drew to pay for his Pact here if he was sagging.
Jeremiah looks like he over-tapped for that Divining Top there. His Cloud Post makes 2 thanks to Glimmer Post. Remember that Drew's... you might think that Drew would be behind because he just didn't resolve the Dream Halls. It may also be that Drew simply prefers to, there's another Dream Halls. Now he can start the counter war all over again.
So you see he did have to pay for the Pact. You can see all those lands tapped there on Drew's side of the board. He just draws and says go.
Now things are getting a little dicey. What is it? Right now Jeremiah has access to 7 mana. If he makes, and because only one of those lands is a Cloud Post, it's still not very threatening for Drew. If he had a couple more Cloud Posts, Drew would have to worry about something like a Glimmer Post into play, which would pretty much increase Jeremiah's mana count by something like 4. But because Jeremiah doesn't have very many Cloud Posts, or Vesuva's on Cloud Posts, Drew has more time.
Yeah, so there you see a second Cloud Post added to the board. So he's got Glimmer Post, Cloud Post, Cloud Post. So that represents 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11 with the fetch land. Am I counting that correctly?
Well, yeah, we have 4, and then, 3, 3, 1, and 4. So that actually would be, that would be 12 mana, I believe.
8, 9, 10. I'm still counting 11. Oh.
He has 4 lands.
Right.
No tap for 4.
Right.
Oh, so you're actually right. So yeah, you're 11. You're right. It is 11.
So we're good.
Well, by the time he'll be 12, by the time he makes his land
that's
drop
what you were.
next
That's
turn.
what you were saying.
Yeah.
For his land drop next turn, you got a 12.
Yeah, assuming his land drop's not a locust.
Yeah. So we've got another Dream Halls on the stack for Drew Levin.
This time, Drew's only played 1 spell this turn, Dream Halls. So Jeremiah will have to pay full cost if he wants to cast this Mindbreak Trap.
And he does. 4 mana, Mindbreak Trap, exile your Dream Halls.
Drew's gonna fight over this one for sure. He's got a Flusterstorm to fight with, and unfortunately for him, so does Jeremiah. We'll see just how much he's built up for it. Not
Drew
at all.
says it's all good. I'll trade a Dream Halls for a Mindbreak Trap. That's fine. And now Jeremiah is going to end of turn, spin the top, as that top tends to do. Spin at the end of your opponent's turn. Its favorite time to spin. Jeremiah's going to untap, draw the card of his choice out of the top 3, finds a Vesuva, copies a Cloud Post. Now he's got 3 Cloud Posts and 1 Glimmer Post. Each of those Cloud Posts adds 4 mana. So that's just 12 out of those 3 lands. 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 mana available to Jeremiah Rudolph right now. And we're going to see a Cunning Wish from Drew Levin on his main phase. I believe on his main phase. It is on his turn. Didn't see what he drew for the turn, so... There you see Cunning Wish, an old Judgment card from the Wish cycle. This is the one you see most often in Legacy alongside Burning Wish. You sometimes see some of the other ones. Living Wish occasionally, but mostly it's Cunning Wish and Burning Wish that you see a lot of in Legacy. Lets you search your sideboard for a card. The actual wording on the card said, you know, choose a card from outside the game, but in tournament settings, you need to just search your sideboard.
It used to be that if Drew had pitched a spell to Force of Will, he could go get it with the Cunning Wish. Rules changes now mean that you can't do that anymore. It actually is just your sideboard, and you can't, you know, a more important thing is you could Cunning Wish for a previously cast Cunning Wish to build up Storm. None of those plays are available, it's just your sideboard.
So Drew plays an island, which of course, the way City of Traders works, as soon as you play a land after City of Traders is destroyed. So he loses that city. Now we have, now we're going to have a counter war over an Intuition here. Jeremiah spun the top, and Drew cast Intuition, and we have a Flusterstorm, and that just, Drew says, all right, you countered my Intuition.
Drew's been pretty wise with this counter fight. He's letting Jeremiah counter everything and not using his own counter spells. He's saving them all for, you know, the one spell that he actually wants to fight over. In these situations, you know, I guess the idea is, you know, you don't want to counter, if someone counters your card find spell, you know, if they want to counter your Intuition, it's exactly the same as them trying to counter the spell you're playing with Intuition. So you may as well just let them counter the Intuition and not fight over it.
So Drew just says go, and Jeremiah spins the top at end of turn.
A lot of mana for Jeremiah now.
Yeah, he is really building things up.
He does have 5 and 12. He has 17 mana. If he can find an Emrakul here, and he has, you know, still 16 available after this, then Drew's going to be in a fair amount of trouble.
Now keep in mind, he can spin top, look, if he doesn't find what he likes, he can crack a fetch land, spin top, look again, and crack another fetch land. He's got 2 in play right now.
Right.
So,
he only gets to have 1 look, because after that he won't have the 15 mana for Emrakul.
So he's not doing it this turn, but he has that option available to him. He can start doing it here. Looks like Drew has drawn and passed the turn.
Well, if he goes for it, Drew has another trick up his sleeve, and that's in the form of Drew can, if he has another Cunning Wish here, can play Cunning Wish for Trick Bind on Emrakul, stopping the extra turn trigger, and then can untap and combo him.
We'll see how that works. I think we may have found an Emrakul, but no, I guess not. So Trinket Mage for Jeremiah Rudolph. Thought I saw an Emrakul on top, but I suspect I'm wrong, considering Jeremiah is now offering up the option to tutor for something through his deck. So, Force of Will.
Drew seems pretty concerned with Trinket Mage here. If you look at the trinkets that it can get Sensei's Divining Top, it can get a Pithing Needle, and it can get a Candelabra of Taunos. There's a 1-of Candelabra, which has the potential to make a ton of mana in this deck.
That's big mana in a deck that has lands that produce so much. This is like High Tide without having to resolve all the High Tides.
Yeah, actually, I think what he's going over for this, sorry, if I were to say what this counter over is Drew will be worried about Trinket Mage finding Expedition Map, finding Eye of Ugin, finding Emrakul. So this Trinket Mage actually does start a change that finds Jeremiah's whole deck.
So we're going to find out if that's how things go. Trinket Mage appears to be resolving after a Flusterstorm. Flusterstorm took out that Force of Will. So he goes directly for the Candelabra.
Yeah, it's not the Eye of Ugin. Jeremiah wants mana right now, and this will give him
as much as he wants. Yeah, it's really like multiple Eldrazi's a turn.
Yeah, so Candelabra of Taunos, one of those cards that when you first read it, he says, well, this card doesn't do anything. You pay X mana and you untap X lands. Why would you do that? But when your lands tap for more than 1 mana, it can be completely unfair.
Yes.
We'll see here.
So Drew's turn now. After a hard cast Force of Will last turn, he untaps with 7 islands in play. Those are some beautiful islands.
Yeah, so he still has a Cunning Wish in his hand. He has his Emrakul. And he has a Show and Tell. Show and Telling Emrakul into play is probably not a thing anymore. He's gonna have, like I said, he has to go for the full combo in this matchup. Especially because Jeremiah could even take a hit off the Emrakul. He could sacrifice 6 permanents. It's not even that bad.
Right, he's actually able to survive through that.
If he sacrifices, he can sacrifice Divine Top, Trinket Mage, 4 lands, and then if he has these 4 posts, a Candelabra in play, he still has access to
all the very powerful
mana.
He
has access to over 20 mana at that point.
So
even post Emrakul, which is kind of, a fun thing to think about.
Yeah. So Drew passes a turn. Jeremiah spins top. I think he drew
Another
at least a force of will.
So it looks
yeah.
like. And, you know, remember, he's not going to pitch these force of wills. The amount of mana he has, he's just going to start, he's going to hard cast all these force of wills.
Now keep in mind he has access to, right now, only 4 blue, not counting that flooded strand there.
4 blue and then the fetch land, so
Yeah.
which is enough for both the force of wills.
Right, exactly.
Drew has,
But he's got to watch how, you got to be careful how he taps his mana if he decides he wants to hard cast both of those force of wills. He's got to make sure to leave up at least 4 blue to be able to hard cast both in the same turn.
What you have to really like about this 12-post deck is that it has the ability to play Eldrazi and also play out of, especially after board, a ton of counter spells.
So in the meantime, it looks like Jeremy's actually going to just keep going on the offense with Trinket Mages. You know, why not? There's been so many turns. If a Trinket Mage had been out there a couple turns ago, Drew may have actually lost the game or had to go for it much earlier.
One thing I really like here about the 12-post deck is typically, what I was saying with blue combo decks, if you give them enough time, they'll assemble a hand of 1,000,000 counter spells. That's typically enough to win, but one thing that might even be better than counter spells in the control mirror is mana. And we're seeing that right now Jeremiah has plenty of that and is able to make really powerful plays due to this.
So the second Trinket Mage finds a Sensei's Divining Top, and Jeremiah cracking some fetch lands, spinning some tops, getting a look at the top of his library, and he's down to looking like under 30 cards there.
I'm surprised he hasn't gone for the Eye of Ugin into Emrakul yet. I think it seems like he's looking for something else.
Yeah, he may have a different plan in mind than Eldrazi kill you. There's an Eldrazi. He's going to put that second from the top. He's got, his hand is double force of will. Vesuva's going to tap for 1,000,000. It's actually just going to tap for 4. But,
I think, he may use that to untap his 4 locusts.
Yeah, and there you see the Candelabra of Tawnos activated. Going to untap 4 lands. He looks like he just untapped
just
3
lands. Yeah, he did have the option to turn one of his colorless manas into a blue mana with the Candelabra, but that's all he really could have done there. And there's the Haymaker. He's found Emrakul, and here's where Drew's going to go for the Cunning Wish. And will this work? Remember, there's the Cunning Wish on Trickbind that Drew can get out of his wish board.
So Cunning Wish, and now hard cast Force of Will. And we've got a Flusterstorm on the Force of Will from Drew. So here comes the counter war.
The question is that Jeremiah spent so much mana on this Emrakul, I don't believe he has enough mana to cast that other Force of Will. Does he have another blue card would be the question.
Yeah, he kind of went for it all in one turn, or he did a lot this turn, and he spent a lot of mana, even counting the fact that he was able to untap his Locusts. But at this point, he looks to be entirely tapped out, and his hand is...
He's a little short on lands. Yeah, he only had 4 Locusts in play. Or loci,
yeah.
Loci, technically. So, yeah, because he didn't have as much mana, interestingly enough, he just didn't have enough mana.
Right, this all 1,000,000 mana, not enough.
Yeah.
And I think we're actually doing some counting here. It's possible now, it happened quickly, so I didn't get a great look, but it looked to me like he tapped the 3 Cloud Posts to cast Emrakul, but that's not enough. They add 4 each. So unless he had mana floating, and that's very possible at this point that he had mana floating.
You weren't tracking the entire time.
Right.
What you can read out of the situation, and I'll tell you just something about playing against these mono blue combo decks. If you're Jeremiah, you're close to the last spell in Drew's hand because he's casting Flusterstorm. Ideally, at the end of a counter war, you save the Flusterstorm for very last because if you're Drew, you'd target. All of Jeremiah's counter spells would say target this Cunning Wish, and then Drew would take a Flusterstorm and then put Flusterstorm copies at all of the original counter spells. So then force the other Jeremiah to have something like 3 more counter spells, or basically a Flusterstorm.
Right. So you see that the Cunning Wish resolves does find that Trickbind, as you mentioned. Trickbind going to go ahead and counter the triggered ability on Emrakul for the extra turn.
So Jeremiah won't get an extra turn. Drew will have 1 chance to combo off now.
Right, and the good news for Drew is Jeremiah is entirely tapped out with 1 card in hand, so even if it is Force of Will, which
I would say by body language, Drew has this. You have to think he does. He drew...
Show and Tell.
He had Show and Tell. He drew an Omniscience.
Oh, wow, nice.
And that's huge.
Show and Tell, Jeremiah says, okay, Omniscience. I'm going to cast Emrakul, Legend Rule.
And this is over at this point.
So they're going to go ahead and shuffle
now
due to the Eldrazi triggers.
one of the things that you don't want to know, Drew smiling here, Drew drew the Omniscience this turn. His other play would have been show and tell Emrakul into play, shrug, say go.
Right.
That was the original plan. This plan, much better.
I think he's like, yeah, like you said, he's smiling.
You don't
He's
want to
like,
know.
well,
You don't want to know what I drew for this
Yeah.
turn. I just had all of these.
Yeah, and there's Enter the Infinite, and now we're gonna see. Well, we may see Drew enter the Infinite.
There is a cast Force of Will.
No, I don't think
No,
he had the
can't
mana. I think he was
cast
just
it.
showing
He's
him,
showing that he
I
had it.
Force of Will.
He had the Force of Will for it, but it doesn't work. So Jeremiah, not making Drew play it out, knows that the Enter the Infinite is the end of the game. Drew Levin wins 2 games to 0 with Enter the Infinite.
Yeah, very entertaining match, and while that felt like it went really deep and really long match, we've still got 20 minutes
Yeah,
left.
well, I'm going to say